Hello, everyone. During our visit to Prague this past July, my daughter and I visited the ghetto of Terezín. As many of you know, the Nazis tried to establish Terezín, also known as Theresienstadt, as a model ghetto, demonstrating to the Red Cross the extent of Nazi compassion and care for Jewish children and adults victimized by the ravages of World War II. Reality, of course, was much different. Terezín was synonymous with cruelty, filth, and disease. Jewish adults and children not deported from Terezín to Auschwitz often died in the ghetto. Yet, in midst of such darkness, Jews maintained their dignity through music, art, and other forms of Jewish and global culture. Then, in 1943, out of an old storage facility, a middle-aged Jewish teacher and artist created a secret prayer room. This Makom Kadosh, holy place, surrounded by the most vile expressions of inhumanity and desecration, was adorned with verses from Jewish liturgy and other sacred texts. Despite Terezín, the light of Jewish faith and spirit continued unabated. During our Hanukkah season, I am reminded of my visit to Terezín. The story of Hanukkah describes how the light of Jewish faith and spirit endured in face of the oppression and cruelty imposed by Israel's archenemy, King Antiochus of the Seleucid Empire. Sadly and ironically, the setting for the Hanukkah story was Jerusalem, where Antiochus and his army defiantly profaned the Jerusalem temple and imposed strict ritual prohibitions on Israel's citizens. Despite insurmountable odds, the small band of resolute and tenacious Maccabees would not succumb to external threats, be they in the form of physical violence from Antiochus or the more cultural and spiritual dangers precipitated by Hellenism. Although Hanukkah is a Jewish observance, in our local community there are people of other faiths, ethnicities, and nationalities who bear witness to similar oppression and degradation from their own individual and collective histories. The freedom Jews celebrate on Hanukkah, therefore, carries an identifiable message to all of us who have struggled to maintain our self-dignity in perilous times. However, there is part of the Hanukkah story rarely highlighted in our Jewish history books or in our classrooms. Leading up to the invasion of Antiochus, the Jews of Israel were engaged in an internal, physical, and spiritual struggle for the soul of their country. What distinguished the Maccabees was their unquestionable loyalty to Jewish tradition and their supreme devotion to the sacred values of Jewish life. They drew strength not from political power, but from God. Essentially, the Maccabees and their supporters waged a war not only against a foreign power, but against many of their fellow Jews who were enticed by the secular trappings of the Hellenistic societies around them. By reclaiming the temple, the Maccabees both conquered the army of Antiochus and inspired their fellow Jews to rediscover the pride in their own religious heritage. The recent attack in a Jersey City kosher supermarket tragically reminds us about the consequences of a hate and racism still too prevalent in our nation. Although we Jews must continue responding to the persistent anti-Semitic assaults in our communities and on our college campuses, we must also respond to the internal struggles which plague the collective soul of American Jewry. Although I believe Judaism is open to multiple forms of observance and to a variety of intellectual and spiritual perspectives, the attrition rate of Jews who disassociate themselves from Jewish identity is the greatest threat to our faith. My hope is that we will draw inspiration from the ancient Maccabees, who continue to motivate the Jewish people to reclaim our tradition and to rediscover the pride in our religious heritage. Whatever your faith, I hope this season brings you joy, peace, open-mindedness, and a renewed commitment to enhancing and sanctifying our world. To the Jewish community, Chag Orim Sameach. May the light of our Hanukkah menorah glow within our homes, within our hearts, and within the collective soul of Jews throughout our country.